What is up, duelists, and welcome to another YouTube video. Today I am here to showcase a deck profile for Genesis format of my Dragon Ruler deck that I played at some public events at YCS Lille. I fortunately or unfortunately had some time on the Sunday for YCS Lille to play some Genesis, and I decided to play one of my favorite decks of all time, and that is Dragon Ruler. So I want to talk about my experience a little bit, how my first impression of the format, because it was the first time I played it in person. But first and foremost, I want to showcase the deck list. Now, I will say I kind of threw this together last minute because I was obviously more focused on the main event at YCS Lille, and they only announced very shorthanded that they were going to have public events for Genesis. So I just brought some Dragon Ruler cards and built a deck with it. But I'll talk about kind of the things that I would change once we get into the lists. In Genesis format, the Dragon Rulers all have 7 points. As the big ones, the big old Dragon Rulers are 7 points each. So as a result, I only decided to play 3 Blaster and 3 Tempest alongside 2 Tidal and 2 Redox. That gives you a total of 10 big Dragon Rulers and a total of 70 points already, which means we're going to be relatively light on other point staples for Genesis, but that's okay because Dragon Rulers honestly have a lot going for them. So that is it was still a really nice experience, and I also did win the public event I entered with Dragon Rulers on the Sunday. Granted, the other semifinals, I won my semifinals, and then the other semifinals was a double loss because they used the new time rules, which was quite funny. But I still ended up asking one of them if they wanted to play for fun as like the finals, quote unquote, and I didn't end up beating Eldritch in that. So the deck packs a punch, I think. So Baby Rulers, these are all 0 points. The old ones, I'm playing 2 of each. And honestly, I'm thinking about, like, of course, back in the day, 3 of all the big ones, 2 of all the small ones was kind of the standard. Nowadays, I honestly feel like drawing the small ones is more important because I'm really trying to get those level 7s onto the field immediately and get that first rank 7 out there. So I feel like there is a world where you play like the more important ones, like Lightning or Burner at 3, or you compensate for only playing 2 Tidal, 2 Redox by playing a third of each of these. So I think that is an option. Most importantly, though, now we're getting into the new cards. We've got 3 Spectral and 1 Nebulous as the new baby rulers for light and dark. Now, if you're not familiar with these because they weren't out back in the day, this one lets you discard itself and another dragon or light monster to search for any 2 dragon rulers. And this one lets you discard itself and a dragon or a dark monster to revive 2 banished dragon rulers. So this one is obviously far better because it is a starter and gets you basically into all of your colors. Let's call it colors. The 4 different attributes of dragon rulers you want to have in rotation. It's so much easier once you have access to this. And of course, you can also get access to Spectral by using Redox's discard effect, because when you discard a Tempest, actually, never mind, not Redox. Discarding Tempest alongside a Wind lets you search any dragon, so we can get into Spectral that way. So that's all the Dragon Rulers, but it's not all the dragons yet. I do play an Armed Dragon Thunder package with 2 level 7, 2 level 5, and 2 level 3, and 1 Pile Arm. Now, these cards are haven't seen a lot of play in the TCG at all yet, I think. The main purpose for these is that they trigger if they are discarded or sent to the graveyard to activate a dragon effect. So essentially a little bit like Atlantean cards in Mermail decks. When you pitch these to the graveyard to activate any of the Dragon Ruler effects, usually the Baby Rulers, but technically also Tempest, they trigger, and they all have different effects. So Armed Dragon Thunder level 3 is the simplest one. When he's discarded or when he's sent to the grave to activate a dragon effect, you draw a card. Armed Dragon Thunder level 5, if it's sent to the grave to activate a dragon effect, you get to search a level 5 or higher wind dragon monster. And Armed Dragon Thunder level 7 searches for any armed dragon card. So essentially, this one draws a card, and this one searches you for the Armed Dragon Thunder level 7 or Tempest or Pile Armed, and this one searches for these 2 or Pile Armed. And Pile Armed itself is just another level 7 extender that you can summon by sending another Wind Dragon or another level 7 or higher dragon from your hand to the graveyard. Then you special summon it, it's a level 7, and then it can also send one of these from your deck to graveyard as a cost to boost one of your monster's attacks, but then you can only attack with 1 monster this turn. It's a nice little engine to just facilitate playing into boards by discarding with your Baby Rulers without actually losing many resources in your hand. Of course, everyone who's played Dragon Ruler back in the day knows that Dragon Ruler has an insanely strong grind game over multiple turns, but even in Genesis format, you know, the format is a little bit faster than 2013 Yu-Gi-Oh! So being able to get those cards back immediately is pretty nice to facilitate more pushes on the first turn. Basically, the plan of this deck, I'm not doing any super fancy combos. I'm not playing any tuners, for example, which you obviously can with dragons. I haven't really taken the time to look into some of the possibilities with tuner monsters in this deck because I know there are tons. Like, for example, with Tempest, you can search any dragon in the game. You can search the Rose Dragons, which are all 0 points. You can go for all kinds of synchros. Of course, back in the day, people used to play level 1 tuners, but with dragons and tuners, you have basically access to everything. But I wanted to play a more grindy and pure version of the deck at first, and these cards really help you facilitate keeping up that card advantage on the initial turn when you try to establish a board that is strong enough to survive until the next turn so that you can overwhelm the opponent with the advantage. Then I played one Heavenly Zephyr Miradora, which is technically a hand trap. I'm not sure if I would play this again. This was kind of mediocre. What this card does is it is a Wind level 7 dragon, so it's searchable with Armed Dragon Thunder level 5. It's searchable with Tempest. And it says neither of its effects can be negated. And if your opponent summons from the extra deck, you can special summon it from your hand. It has 2600 defense. Then you can target a monster on the field, and while it is face up on the field, that monster cannot activate its effects. So the idea is just that you have a relatively big body that you can throw onto the field. That's going to make it harder for your opponent to actually, attack you for game, and maybe be like a more of a slight inconvenience rather than an actual hand trap, I would say. But didn't really pull it off all that often. But yeah. Another card with a relatively similar function that isn't searchable, however, is Emissary from the House of Wax. Now, I think a lot of you guys won't know what this card does, because I also didn't before I found it. It is a fire illusion monster, so it has the illusion trait of it cannot be destroyed by battle, and it also can't destroy other monsters by battle. But if your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can special summon it from your hand. So it kind of like functions like a battle fader in that sense. If you summon it in the battle phase and your opponent doesn't have a way to immediately out it, it's just going to stay there and make it impossible for your opponent to attack you directly. And at the end of the battle phase, you can activate its effect, which says that all of your opponent's monster, I believe attack position monsters, yes. All attack position monsters your opponent currently controls cannot change their battle positions nor be used as material for Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link. Also, their effects are negated until the next battle phase. So essentially, if your opponent goes into the battle phase a little bit early, not prepared for this card, you put this onto the field, you cannot die, and at the end of the battle phase, you basically freeze their entire board. They can't Xyz, they can't fuse, they can't use the effects. And you basically have a much easier time outing the board on the next turn. On top of that, it is a fire monster, so you can banish this card for Blaster Burner and so on and so forth. Which I thought was a neat idea with the spirit of the deck, because essentially one of the core cards I wanted to build around for the first iteration of the deck was Super Rejuvenation, which was one of the strongest cards in this deck in 2013, and it at 0 points in Genesis format. Now, this card in the end phase draws you cards for each dragon that you have discarded or tributed this turn. So essentially in this deck, you can draw like 6, 8, 10 cards in the end phase off of Super Rejuvenation. And then if you draw into another Super Rejuvenation, you can use that one as well, because it is a quick play spell, and basically shape your hand however you want in the end phase. And so I wanted some cards that I can draw into that because after I use Super Rejuvenation in this deck, my graveyard is going to be stacked for next turn. Like, I'm gonna have so much follow-up. I'm gonna have all the resources in the world, 6 cards in hand after I discard for hand size, all the dragons in the world in the graveyard. I wanted stuff that I can draw into that makes me survive. So like, that's what these two are mainly here for. Maybe there's other things you can do in this deck as well. I thought about playing cards that you can discard in the end phase, or for your dragon rulers that help you survive. Like cards like Mudora and Keldo are only 1 point each. So maybe something like that, and they have good attributes, Earth would help. So there's other options. This card, I didn't really draw it in my first couple of games with this deck, but I like the idea, because very, very, very often I just had this situation where literally the only lose condition for me is if I get OTK'd, because if I don't get OTK'd, then my follow-up turn is always crazy. 3 Sacred Sword of the 7 Stars is a premium draw card in this deck, costs 0 points. banish a level 7 from your hand or field, draw 2 cards. It's once per turn, but obviously banishing your dragon rulers is going to result in a free +1 because they will trigger and search. So that is awesome. And here's my favorite card in this deck, which is a new card that I also don't think a lot of people are familiar with because it hasn't really seen play in the TCG. Here There Be Dragons is a quick play spell that has 2 effects. You can only use one of the effects per turn, not both. But it says the first effect is special summon a dragon ruler from your hand, graveyard, or banishment, and then immediately after it resolves, you can exceed summon a dragon ruler exceed using only dragon rulers you control. So the idea behind this card is that if you set up your standard end board now, which is these 2, plus some other things, but the new 2 dragon rulers, Chasma and Eclipse, is what you're trying to set up with this face down, ideally. What this allows you to do on the opponent's turn is use Chasma's effect to quick effect send a dragon ruler and use its discard effect. Usually you're going to send Blaster to destroy a card. You're going to use Eclipse to negate a spell trap. So once you've used both of these effects, you're going to use Here There Be Dragons, revive any dragon ruler, and then overlay these 2 into Disaster, which I think is one of the most powerful cards, or one of the most powerful boss monsters I've seen so far in Genesis format, because when this card exceeds summoned, you attach a different level 7 dragon rulers to it from your grave or banishment, and then you banish monsters from your opponent's field and graveyard that share any attribute with its materials. So essentially, if you manage to attach all 4 different big dragon rulers to it, you banish all of your opponent's monsters on the field and in the graveyard because you have all of the attributes attached to it, except for Divine, I suppose. And then if it has all 6 attributes, dragon rulers attached to it, its attack and defense become 4600 and it's completely unaffected. So it's a 4600 towers monster and when it's summoned with this on the opponent's turn, you actually banish all of your opponent's monsters on field or in the graveyard. So that's a very powerful combo, which honestly made me feel like I didn't even need any crazy synchro combos or shenanigans, which was like, if I could ever set this sort of play up, I was really, really happy. Of course, Here There Be Dragons is not searchable, which is why we do have a little bit of, we have a lot of deck thinning and we have draw power. In Sacred Sword of the 7 Stars, we have Armed Dragon Thunder level 3. Super Rejuve, unfortunately, would draw this in your end phase, so you wouldn't be able to set it to get the powerful banish effect. But in general, I just found Disaster to be a very, very strong win condition for this deck. So in the future, I want to explore some synchro variations of Dragon Rulers, but for now, as a beginning, like just toying around with the cards, I really liked this as well. Graveyard effect of this card is that you can banish it and then return any number of dragon rulers from your banished pile to the graveyard with different attributes. So it also gives you crazy follow-up because you basically can return a bunch of dragon rulers from your banished pile to the graveyard. So that's the main deck. I believe it's slightly over 40. There was a Yamata dragon in here at some point when I played a showcase match against Lampi on the Konami stream, and I had Yamata dragon in it, but I took it out for the public events because I didn't feel like it would come up, and I didn't really miss it. But that was my attempt at bringing a good normal summon into the deck, at least that draws you up to 5 cards, which I thought was really funny, but I actually never got to pull it off, so I took it out. But it's a cool idea. Extra deck. Since we're not playing any synchros, the extra deck is pretty lenient. We have a lot of space, and there's a couple of unnecessary cards in here that I'm going to fine-tune over the course of me playing this deck, because I don't intend to stop, because it was very fun. 3 Chasma, 2 would probably be enough. I think, in general, 2 of each of the Dragon Rulers is required, just in case your initial push or your initial disaster is not enough to win the game. It is actually not that hard to establish a second one, because the baby rulers, Spectral and Nebulous, actually have ways to bring these back from the graveyard as well. Here There Be Dragons can also summon back the Exceed monsters if they're properly summoned. So that is not that difficult to make another disaster. But this is basically your bread and butter. You're always going to try to end up on both of these. Conveniently, they make it very easy to, if you get to one of them, it's very easy to get to the other, because both of them essentially extend, right? Because next to their disruptive capabilities on the opponent's turn, they also both have a way to extend on your own turn. So Chasma, of course, sends any level 7 Dragon Ruler from your deck to the grave and then applies its discard effect, meaning you can also send Redox to revive a level 7. So this basically gives you back a body when you make it, and this does the same thing because this targets one of your baby rulers in your graveyard banishment, and then summons the one that's mentioned on it from your, I think from anywhere. I think it summons from the deck, it summons from banishment, deck or banishment, yeah. It's so basically, they both summon another level 7 when they're summoned, so that makes it a lot easier to make them both. The rest is just utility. I played 2 Draco Sacks and 2 Big Eyes. This is just me being an unk and thinking like, oh, if I play a long grindy game like in 2013, then these might come in handy. I think one of each is fine. I never even made one of them, but I do think for the option they're okay. Played 1 Blaze, Supreme Ruler of all dragons, which is unfortunately not a dragon ruler in its name, which would be really good if it was, but it's not. It's a removal card. It says destroy 2 cards, one from your hand or field and one from your opponent's field. It's non-target, which is nice, and it can summon itself back from the graveyard. And if it does, it goes back into your extra deck. So in theory, it is it's an infinite rank 7 that always gives you something to make, which is neat. 1 Volopharniges, the Darkest Dragon Doom Rider, which is it's a generic rank 7, which has the effect to pop a face-up card. But if it's a dragon that's attached to it, you can use it as a quick effect. So this is usually what I would make if I just had more bodies than just for these 2. I would also put this up next to them, which gives you a pop, a spell trap negate, and then another pop for a face-up card, which is neat. Just a neat little addition to your end board. And then here is what I spent my last 30 points on, and that is Typhon for 10, which puts us to 80, which I thought was really neat for grindy games. I would definitely keep playing this. I made this a couple of times. And then one Zeus, which is 20 points, which puts us to exactly 100, 70 for the big dragon rulers, 10 for Typhon, 20 for Zeus. This card is crucial for this deck, I found, because after you do this play that I mentioned earlier, where you summon a disaster, with 4 different dragon rulers attaching from the banish pile to it, you are left with a 4600 towers that has 6 materials. And you summon this usually on your opponent's turn. So this is what you're going to start your turn with. So at that point, you can make a decision. Am I going to try to just win with the towers, or am I going to go for a Zeus play? Because what you can do really easily is just go to the battle phase, swing for 46, main phase 2. That's a 7 material Zeus, which is really hard to stop. And then you're going to detach like these dragon rulers, and they're going to make it really easy. Like, you're not really losing your disaster, because in theory, if that's not enough for your opponent yet, that you've basically just banished all their monsters, attacked them for 4600, and then Zeus them with a 7 material Zeus, you can really easily make a second disaster with this setup, which is awesome. This is basically something that comes up when this is how you close out games super quickly. But Zeus also just comes up like when you're going second, you're playing into a board, like you're making Chasma, you're detaching 1, you're attacking, and then you're making a Zeus to force back row and stuff. Like, Zeus is a super valuable card when playing into boards in this deck in general, while also being a super nice win con on top of the disaster. So I really like spending some points on the Zeus. And I did notice that with the big rulers, of course, having 3 of each back in the day was really crucial because of the grind game and so on and so forth. I think nowadays games do go a little quicker in Genesis format, so the having 2 of each could honestly be fine. I think Tempest is always going to be a 3 of, but the others you might be able to get away with 2 each. Alright, so side deck, I decided to play 3 Lava Golems, which I really like in this deck, because you don't really need your normal summon, and it is a fire monster, and it gives you really easy answers to problematic decks that make some crazy boards. So, you know, I haven't really experimented enough in Genesis format to know exactly what people are doing. I was just afraid that someone would find some crazy combo pile, and so I included Sphere Mode as well. I do think Lava Golem is the much preferred card moving forward, because it also is a fire monster, and if you draw multiples, you can make use of the second one by either discarding it for burner, or you can also, I mean, you can give your opponent 2 Lava Golems. So I would always keep playing the Lava Golem. I don't know if I would keep playing like 5 of these, but you know, for now it was fine. Then I played Rescue Ace Impulse and Fire Attacker. I really like these. I've seen that a lot of people are playing these in Genesis format in general. I think it's an awesome engine in this deck in particular, because they give you fire monsters in rotation, which you can banish for Blaster, as well as draw 2, discard 1 is an awesome effect in a deck that basically has a lot of good discards. Like, all of the big dragon rulers are great discards for this, because they in the graveyard is essentially like if they are still in your hand. So that was really nice for me, and I would even consider main decking these. 3 DD Crows, which was in my main deck at first, but I had trouble keeping it at 40, and I really wanted to try a lot of the things that I have in my main deck now, so I wanted to cut some of the cards where I was like, okay, you know, I kind of know how this is going to perform, this DD Crow. Let me just play all engine first and see how the format is. Cited it in a couple times against decks like Eldritch, it was pretty good, so I mean, DD Crow is probably going to be a relatively common card in Genesis format with the quality that it has for 0 points. And then 3 Twin Twisters, because I wanted to respect back row a little bit, and this comes in very handy, of course. A lot of the decks in Genesis format right now, Twin Twisters is pretty good against. You know, I played against Exo Sisters, I played against Eldritch, and against those kind of decks, Twin Twisters is awesome. And similar to the Fire Attacker, this deck has some pretty good discards, so Twin Twisters is the card of choice. Have no real complaints about the side deck. A lot of these cards came in very handy. The only thing I would take out for now is the Sphere modes. The rest was all pretty nice. All right, so that is the deck list. In general, I think this deck was really fun, and honestly, so far I'm having a blast with Genesis format, and I like that it gives me an opportunity to try out things. Like, I've been having this idea of Dragon Rulers since these cards have come out, and I just haven't really been able to make it work or even feel like it was worth trying in the actual TCG, because I just knew the power level was going to be off, especially going second when I'm playing into boards. There's going to be no chance you're going to have success with this. So I liked it in Genesis a lot because it gave me that opportunity, and I'm going to keep tinkering with it. I think there's a lot of potential in Dragon Rulers, even though they do take up a lot of points, so that's kind of rough. But the synchro stuff it can do is quite fun, and Disaster is a really cool win condition, even if you don't play any tuners. So I like that a lot. In general, I think Genesis format is very fun. I think the initial points list now after the first weekend of playing the format is not perfect. There's a couple of things that I noticed that are quite powerful still, but honestly still very, very refreshing to play. Like, considering decks like Exo Sister or Eldritch as full power being maybe a little bit too powerful is very refreshing compared to what's considered too powerful in modern Yu-Gi-Oh sometimes. So I still like that. You know, I like Dimension Shifter, for example. I played against the Ritual Beast player a couple of games just for fun, and I got Shifter a bunch of times, and that card still feels obnoxious for 10 points. But also, admit, I was playing decks that are very weak to Shifter, and not everyone is. So they were actually telling me that they entered some public events with the Ritual Beast deck, and they found Shifter to not be performing as well for them because Eldritch was a very popular deck, and Exo Sisters and stuff like that. So maybe you know, over time, if the format develops a certain way, people are going to stop playing Shifter. For now, I still feel like a lot of decks that you would want to play still are going to suffer way too much from Dimension Shifter. So I really felt like that was not costed properly yet, at least in my personal experience. But other than that, been having a fun time so far with Genesis format. Hope you guys like the Dragon Ruler deck. Hope it inspires some people to try it out. Definitely let me know some ideas of what I should put into this deck, because this is not a final brew. I'm going to keep tinkering with it. I think that's the fun of the format, is just trying to find something cool that you like, and then just mess with it and see if you find something cool. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.